So I shall step into Lucy's shoes, which is exactly what I did, because Lucy was the former chair of the Mill Road History Society, and I've stepped into her shoes, although we have a bit of a kind of rotary system, which is great. But I'm delighted to be here. I'm delighted to be the first speaker, performer, in face-to-face with everybody. That's great, and that's a celebration in itself. So, without further ado, I'm going to take my coat off, hang it on this peg, and I shall begin. I shall wear my glasses on the end of my nose, and I hope you all enjoy this journey. So, if you would like to follow me this way. Hope you've all got your comfy shoes on. So, best foot forward from Arbury to Romsey with many stops along the way. Step into my shoes as I take you on an alternative tour of Cambridge through time, place, from north to south. Kay Coburn, born 2nd of September 1964, 17 Hawkins Road, Arbury. There I am, in all my glory, particularly the end photograph in my brother's arms. I wonder who was behind him saying, "Be careful." Christening day photographs taken in the garden at Hawkins Road, Arbury, with my grandparents and godparents, and there with my brother again. I was 9 months old when I left Arbury. Destination, Romsey town. The move from Arbury to Romsey? A significant move for my mum and dad, as this was their first purchase, an end of terrace in Cypress Road for the grand total of £2,000. My mother admits that she would have quite liked a house down Pern Road. But they were going back in 1965, those semi-detached houses were going for £4,000, double the price. I'm glad they chose Cypress Road. Early memories of Cypress Road, for me, come in the form of family photograph albums, although I do remember being there very much so in those moments. Mill Road, backs and fronts, just like the backs and fronts in town, our backs and fronts, right on our doorstep. Apparently, Cambridge was designated a city in 1951. We only knew it as the town. In the back garden with my nana and granddad, about to go to a wedding in front of the back-to-back row terraced houses in Malta Road. On the front doorstep with a friend, driving at 17, my new Mini parked on the curbside. Well, second-hand, but new to me. Still not many cars parked down Cypress Road in 1981. A close-up of Romsey town. This is extracted from a visitor's map, a tourist map. Romsey town is clearly printed in there. Funnily enough, Arbury isn't. You are here. Let the tour begin down Mill Road. Let me take you on an alternative tour down Mill Road, my Mill Road. Back then, obviously, this part of the tour comes from my early memories, some of which are vivid and some more vague. Remember, this is where I had been placed, removed from the north and planted in the south of the River Cam, in this place known to others as Romsey Town. My first memories of my house is that it was surrounded by other houses, all next to each other in rows, although we had a passage next to our house, end of terrace. I was living amongst the fronts and backs of these Victorian brick-built houses that I'd been told on later on in life that were for the railway workers. This way, where are we? Can you see that? Yeah, this way, up Cypress Road, or that. That way, away from Mill Road, was Memora Road, which my dad told me used to be the railway line. And if you looked hard enough, you could see it there, just by the wideness of this now road that used to be tracks. Next to Memora Road was Suez Road, and then Madras, and then Hobart, a mixture of privately owned and council houses. I remember knowing everyone's name that lived around us and beyond, and if you didn't know their real name, then they had other names and labels attached to them, like the prisoner of war man that lived opposite us, the dog lady, the Italians, the Poles, the Irish lot, and so on and so on. I didn't name these people, but the neighbourhood at the time did. Everyone went about their business back then and spoke politely to each other when they passed in the street. There are a few names that were integral part of this era, and they were Mrs. Mead, the Sally Army lady, who my mum visited every night before Crossroads came on Anglia TV. Irene, Mrs. White, our eccentric next-door neighbour, and old Mr. Cole. Let's walk towards Mill Road now, shall we? So we are here, Cyprus Road, and we have just been this way, and now we're going to go that way. Everybody still comfortable? At the top of the road, opposite Cyprus Road, was the doctor's surgery, known to me as the Emersons. Familiar to anybody else? The formidable Emersons, general practitioners, Dr. David Emerson and Dr. Shirley Emerson, husband and wife, running their own practice back in the 1970s and early 80s. I remember not wanting to see Dr. David, as he always seemed a bit grumpy with a lollipop stick in hand, saying the words, "Open wide, please," as he gently looked down the back of your sore throat. Whereas Dr. Shirley always appeared to be smiley, much more chatty, and a very good listener. I realised throughout those transitional child and womanhood years. Dr. David, if you didn't have anything wrong with you, would look at the painting, and he would sit behind his big roll-top desk with his glasses on the end of his nose, not dissimilar to me, and know you were okay, so that's why he looked at the picture. The painting that hung on the Emersons' consultation room, and you can't quite see it, but obviously I credit who the painting was, and even I can't read it from here, but it's credited. But it's quite a famous painting called The Doctor. And here are the Emersons. If anybody was in Dr. Shirley's consultation room, this was her family picture. And when she was talking to me, I would often look at the picture. And this is the rocking horse that I used to rock on when I was a little girl, but only when the other boys and girls allowed me to. Across the road from the surgery was Mr. and Miss Wilson's sweet shop. Although I now think she wasn't Miss Wilson, she must have been Miss whatever her surname was when she was born. Anyway, I remember he always wore a white coat. He was smart and smiley and would always greet you in a gentlemanly manner. His sister, Miss Wilson, was more formal, and for some reason, I remember him more than her. He got to know my penny and halfpenny orders, white mice, fruit salads, blackjacks, traffic light lollies, sherbet dib-dabs and spangles. 2 ounces of pear drops, please. With my pocket money day, I'd splash out and sometimes have a quarter. Milky Way, Smarties, Spangles. I can taste them now. There was another man who worked in the shop, who I didn't know then, But as time passed by, and Mr. and Miss Wilson passed on and passed away, Ted Bailey, the other man, took over the shop, and that was the Barber's. Next door but one to the Wilsons was the Royal Standard Public House, which had a tiny off-licence at the front and a garden that my dad used to take me to, occasionally in the summertime. A bottle of Coke with a straw and some Golden Wonder crisps were enjoyed on the cold metal bucket seats beneath the bright umbrellas that stood within the centre of the metal tables. Across Malta Road, the road which housed both the schools that I went to, and we're down this way at the moment, everybody, across that Malta Road. Sedley Infant School was placed at one end of this road, tucked up in a passage, which was called Sedley Passage, and Romsey Junior School in the middle of this road. I still feel sad that this amazing building is no longer there. But my hope is it houses students, scholars and the like who are living and learning on the spot that meant so much to me back then. My education journey began at Sedley, happy days and being inspired from the age of 5 by Miss Foster, the headmistress, who kept in touch with me via letters for a very long time into my early 20s. She shared town and gown stories. I wanted to be her. And I think alongside my dad, she set the seeds to discover what was over the other side of the bridge. Sorry, I'll just go back to that, just to sure you've all seen it, but there we are. There's Miss Foster. And I think they were the mayor and mayoress of Cambridge at the time, and their names were Mr. and Mrs. Mayhew. They lived along Coleridge Road. And my friend, and I don't think you can see that, but was all dressed up in her Polish traditional costume. And there's me in the middle there. Let me use the pointer here. All dressed up, ready to dance. And I do remember the names of those two as well, like you do remember names of those students and pupils that you were around and that were so much in your life then. And then Miss Thine, she was another formidable teacher. Miss Thine supporting us as we lined up to dance, but Miss Thine supported me to read. I can remember that very, very clearly. Back on track, past the Romsey Labour Club. See here, the image of the original plans. And interestingly now, juxtaposed to those images, the plans are already in now. They're probably already happening. Everybody, I hope, is trying to save the frontage of that building that the wonderful Leah Manning fought to get open in the first place, the first woman councillor in Cambridge, which features on later on. Opposite was the old Methodist church on the corner of Hemmingford Road. I'm taking you along and across the road now from the Labour Club, across the road to the corner, which is now the Romsey Mill. I remember congregations of 7 in that church, apart from the services when the Girl Guide Company came. The 26 Cambridge Guides increased the numbers to 27. We were on parade. From 7 to 27 must have made a difference to that vicar's morale on those parade Sundays. As a teenager, years on, I went to the very first youth club opening of the Romsey Mill, embracing the changes of this building, which welcomed diversity and all. As a teenager, I really remember those days, and that place served me well. And I'm sorry that you can't see this picture here is so dark on the screen there. That's me getting my Queen's Guide award. Next stop is Lowe's. So we've done, so Romsey House, no, okay. Here we are. No mobile phones back then, just 10 pence to speak to friends that you didn't want your parents to hear you talking to. And this is back across the road in the red phone box that used to be placed in the corner next to the wall by Romsey House, which was a theological college in the 70s and early 80s, and now a language school, I believe. No mobile phones, like I said back then, 10 pence to speak to your friends that you didn't want your parents to hear you talking to. A dating sanctuary or something like that. An overused telephone directory and fag ends squashed on the floor and in any crevices available. Chewing gum on some of the window panes and the fusty smell of stale cigarette smoke. Can you place yourself in one of those phone boxes right at this moment? Juxtaposed to that stale smell was the smell of new leather that used to waft out from the little cobblers that was attached to the Salisbury Club passage, which took you directly into a large dance floor. This is where the Saturday night fever dances went on. Staying alive, staying alive, staying alive. Yes. You can tell by the way I move my hips. I loved those classes. I joined these classes, but if only I'd have been brave enough to lie and get in to see that X-rated film back then. I was underage, and I did what I so often did back then, which was to do the right thing. Innocent, yet intrigued. Next stop, along Mill Road. We're still here. We're still coming along. We're next to, where are we? Where's my Mill Road? Yeah. We're now at Lowe's hardware shop, owned by Mr. Lowe, who used to live down Cypress Road at one point, I think. Forgive me if my memory does not serve me correct along the way, but all of this was a while ago. And of course, these memories belong to me. They are my memories of my Mill Road. They belong to me, but I do want to share them because, after all, this is an alternative tour, and some of my memories may belong to you too. Lowe's hardware shop, now Cutlax, for all your hardwares, from planting seeds to DIY and even home brewing kits to make your own beer. It's all sold here. Moving on still, just along from Lowe's, we're moving on to the Old Vicarage. Ah, I can hear you thinking, the Old Vicarage, set back from Mill Road, a large Jacobean, Edwardian, Victorian house set back within its own grounds, surrounded by mature trees and bushes, the living quarters of the Solways back then, the vicar of St. Philip's Church, and his wife and 4 children. Looking back now, I can only assume that that house and grounds were an asset to the diocese, but I'm only surmising, which perhaps led to the demolition of this old vicarage into 37 contained flats at Millcroft Court, along with a brand new vicarage right on Mill Road opposite the church. St. Philip's, right in the middle of Romsey town, is the church where I said, I do, and I promised to obey. I told you I was innocent and naive back then. Come on, step into my shoes. A white wedding on Mill Road. You can get your cameras out if you want at this point. Take some snaps. Quite an occasion for the local community to come out onto the streets to watch. Even more of an occasion when the vicar didn't turn up. That's another story for another time. The little white shoes. Look at them. To be honest, I think I like them more now than I did then. Then, you ask, then was back in 1985, when we were listening to sounds of Madonna, Like a Virgin, and Spandau Ballet's True. In fact, True was the first song these little white shoes danced to on our wedding eve. My wedding shoes, flat, little white, which suited the lily white lace dress and the veil. An amazing find and a purchase that served me well on my wedding day, Saturday, April the 13th, 1985. It doesn't matter if you don't wear them again, is what my mum said when I bought the shoes. I wasn't so sure. I only ever buy shoes that I can wear again and again. When was I ever going to wear these shoes again? I don't remember how much they actually cost, but I can remember that they were in the sale, the Saxone shoe shop sale. I don't think there's a Saxone in Cambridge now. And believe me, I know. I used to know every shoe shop in the town back in 1980s. I used to be a Saturday girl in Freeman, Hardy and Willis. Remember that? Following in my mum's footsteps, as she used to work in True Form, which was on the corner of Petticurie. She loved shoes and still does, and anoraks. My childhood shoe shop experiences were in Clark's and the Start Right section in Eden Lilies. I loved having my feet measured and choosing my next pair of shoes, autumn blue or black and springtime sandals of red. When I reached my teens, I was that girl that ruined my feet by cramming them into the latest fashionable shoes, stilettos, boots that didn't zip up over my chunky calves, wedges, which were all the craze. And not a measuring shoe fitter in sight. Size 7, a Continental 40. The little white shoes didn't really satisfy me. They were not what I really wanted on my special day. I wanted class, expensive, different, wow factor. But look at them now. Look at them now. White as the day I bought them. Little white shoes, you served me well on the day I said I do. Thank you. Come on, let's keep moving. Best foot forward. And finally, walking up to the altar as Kay Coburn to become Kay Blayney, and then promptly moving away from Mill Road, away from where I'd been placed for the last 20 years. Interesting where these little white shoes led me to. But before we go there, let us stay on the same side of the road, and let us walk past the Cooperative Society, the Co-op, a long-standing provider to Mill Road folk for a very long time. Thank you. Past Hillary's fruit and vegetable shop, which I believe was originally on the same side of the road as Howe's Bakery back then. My favourite shop of all was Howe's Bakery. A cottage loaf and 2 ice buns, please. But not forgetting the Trustees Savings Bank. Certainly not forgetting the Trustees Saving Bank. To Miss Coburn, 26 Cyprus Road, Cambridge, CB1 3QA. 5th of January, 1981. Dear Miss Coburn, thank you for your letter of the 2nd of January, 1981. As requested, I have pleasure in enclosing a staff application form, which I should be pleased if you would complete as far as possible, And perhaps you could call at the bank at 4 o'clock on Friday the 30th of January, bringing the form with you. If this should not be of convenient time to you, please telephone me to arrange an alternative date. Yours sincerely, H.J. Webb, the manager. 12th of February 1981. Dear Miss Coburn, I understand that you've now taken the opportunity to visit our branch at Mill Road, Cambridge, and that you have had an informal interview with the manager. I hope that you found the visit helpful and informative. I shall be very pleased to retain your name on my file and consider you for any suitable vacancies that may occur in the near future. Should you be shortlisted for a position with the bank, I will write to you again, inviting you to attend a second interview. Yours sincerely, J.T. Wright, Executive Officer. Imagine, I nearly got my first job at 16 going on 17, but it was not to be. The Broadway. Back across the road to the Broadway, a row of shops opposite us, everybody. Feel them, feel them. Where you can buy flowers, still. Electrics, then. Fish and chips, then and now. And get your hair cut. But not a single coffee shop in sight. No, not down Mill Road. They only existed downtown. A single ticket to Emmanuel Street, please, or a return to the Broadway or the bowling alley, which is now the mosque. Still in Romsey and focusing on my schools, my early education, Sedley, Romsey, Coleridge. All in a triangle. There they are. Coleridge by the big Radigan Road there. Sedley up that passage. No, there's Sedley up the passage. And, have I got this right? No, there's Romsey, there's Sedley, tucked up that passage. No bus ride needed to get to any of these. All by foot, best foot forward, taking the shortcuts and walking and running through the passages. Our passages. Our passages. The passageway down our road, off Mill Road, was quite near the top end of the road. You went into a short stretch, and then at the end of that, you could go two ways, left or right. Left took you past the lassie dog man's house and was the shortcut to our school. Right was where the back-to-back houses were on either side of you, and these were defended by creosoted garden sheds and fences which all surrounded you. Also, the right way was the long way down, the whole length of our road. I can remember the thrill now. Each time I entered the entrance of a passage in Romsey town, you approached, you peered down as far as you could see, then entered and were thrilled to be at the other end without having your leg bitten off or bumping into the funny man. One sunny day, when I was not even half the height of the slated wooden fences, I went into the passage with my favourite teddy bear, George. And there in the middle of the passageway were the two biggest black dogs I had ever seen. One ignored me, but the other tried to eat George. Stuck in the middle, surrounded by sheds, the smell of old rotting wood and sticky weeds, not another human in sight. Help! There were passages everywhere, and it was always a treat to find a new one. We would go through as many passages as we could to save going the roadway. Our passage was on our side of the road. There was another one opposite, but that was somebody else's passage. Looking back, there were unspoken rules about who owned the passages, our town territory, and we were the tribesmen. The university people, they had their own passages too. They were fancy passages with weeping willows and precious little shops on either side, not like ours. Let's go downtown now, shall we? We used to park the car at Park Street. Car park, not there anymore. And walk through the passage to get to Bridge Street. Sometimes my dad would take us through Portugal Place, pink and yellow houses with flowers on the windowsills. What a pleasant passage. Then we'd walk down Trinity Street. My dad and I used to leapfrog over the bollards leading to All Saints Passage. Our first stop was Trinity Street Post Office, where we used to see the St Bernard dog dribbling at the doorway. Green Street would be our next stop, a place called the Coffee Pot. There we would choose whatever we wanted to eat. I used to have a slice of homemade treacle tart, and my brother would have the same and a glass of milk. I hated milk. It reminded me of my first school that was situated down the end of a passage, Sedley Passage. We used to have a little bottle of lukewarm milk every day. Yuck! After our town 11s, we would walk through Rose Crescent, which was a very grand passage to me back then. And we would make our way onto the market square. Here, I would buy a quarter of paregorics from Jack Reynolds' sweet stall. The next visit would always be the toilets, which were in the centre of the market. On our way to these, smack bang in the middle of the market square, sat Trevor. Who remembers Trevor? Trevor, Cambridge resident drunk, rosy cheeks and woolly bobble hat, big check coat and a bottle of meths. Cheers! Hello! Always there with a big smile, shouting out to the passers-by and sometimes singing, not scary at all. And Snowy on the corner with his mice running around his hat. Our next stop was Petty Curie, to McFishery's, which was a wet fish shop full of ice and fishy smells. Here my mother would purchase Saturday night's tea, cockles, kippers, and sometimes prawns. On the way back to the car, we would always go via All Saints Passage to visit the Cambridge toy shop, where I would wander around and wish and dream I could have one of those dolls that looked real. This shop was like Aladdin's cave, and they sold boy and girl dollies, black and white. A passage of my life, our Saturday routine for years. I do a similar thing with my children now. Back in 2001, they love Market Passage with its continental flavours. One of them told me a story the other day about a path that they'd walked down, well, actually ran down, snaky path. It was long and I kept looking behind me as I thought someone was following me. I was so glad when I got to the other end. Yes, I know that path. I used to think snakes lived there. I ran that passage too. Thrilling, isn't it? Now, dogs go on leads. And the passages all have gates in our town, Romsey town, whereas downtown, the passages are much the same, except the smells are different and the produce and gifts are of today and not then. Let me take you on a tour down my town, crossing over the bridge and in the town. Town meets gown. You've heard about Park Street in our passages and Portugal Place and Trinity Street. Heifers, I just could keep adding to the list. The whim, mentioned in The Theory of Everything. When I watched the film, I was there. I'm sure that I went to Heifer's when the book was in the window back in the day. The coffee pot down Green Street, the Dorothy, where my grandmother and maybe my mother danced, and where I went to have probably a bottle of Coke with a straw, but I used to eat the sugar cubes and cream horns. Eden Lilies, Joshua Taylor's, Robert Sales, McFishery's, Jack Reynolds, the Burney Inn, Petit Curie Lion Yard, the Arts Theatre. These weekly visits to town as a child and into my adulthood were the introduction to my interest in the gown. And many stops along the way, not the conventional career trajectory into teaching by any manner of means, but that's another story, another tour. But before we move on, may I share my route with you all, my pathway from Romsey town to meet the gown. It's a pleasant route, encouraged by all the once upon a times and the keep going, keeping on Kay, that were all my inspirations along the way. My passion for storytelling and writing derived from Miss Foster. Remember the head teacher of Sedley Infant School that I mentioned earlier? She wrote to me throughout my teenage years. 31st of August 1978. Dear Kay, I thought that instead of sending you a swanky birthday card, I'd send you a postal order instead. 50p won't go very far, I know, but perhaps you can put it towards something you may be wanting. I hope you all have a happy time on Friday. I cannot believe that you'll be 14. It doesn't seem so long since Mummy first brought Keith to see me after he left the Grove School. You were only a baby then. You will soon be going back to school for your 3rd year. You will soon be thinking about those O-levels. I wonder which subjects you will decide to take. Sedley sends his love. He says, tell Kay that he's 6 now and he has a sore paw. We're not quite sure where he got it from, a thorn or a stone, or he's been stung by a wasp. Anyhow, he's licking it better, which should save a huge vet's bill. Please remember me to the rest of the family. I hope you all had a good holiday and are keeping well. With love from Miss Foster. P.S. There is no need to spend most of the 50p on the stamps, etc., writing to thank them. 31st of August 1981. Dear Kay, thank you for your nice little notelet, giving me the latest news. Fancy, my little Sedley friend is now sweet 17. I can scarcely believe it, and left school and has a job. I do hope you will be very happy and successful there. I expect you will find life rather difficult, and you will meet all sorts of people with all sorts of ways, some of them nice, some of them not quite so nice. Choose your friends carefully, stick to what you know is right, and I think all will go well. I expect you will be very excited when you get your first pay packet. I shall be interested to hear your exam results. I always look in the Cambridge News to see what my young friends have done. I'm so glad that you're going to evening classes. I think we go on learning all our lives. In fact, I sometimes think I know less now than when I left college, which in a way is as it should be. So keep on keeping on, Kay. I shall always be interested in your doings, so keep me informed from time to time. Dear Kay, it seems impossible that you are 18 and come of age. It seems only yesterday that you started at Sedley. How the time flies. I do hope that you have a happy day and many, many good wishes on this rather special occasion. I hope you will keep in touch. I shall always be interested in the progress through your life of my little friend, Kay. With love from Miss Foster. I really appreciated and valued these letters, and reflecting on them now, no wonder I dedicated my master's thesis to her, and no wonder my study was titled The Secret Desire to Become a Head, Understanding the Lived Experience of Head Teachers' Career Trajectories, a Qualitative Study. There are so many others that have supported me and encouraged me to venture onto the grass that always had signs on it saying, please keep off. And this was certainly a feature that I included in a radio short play that I wrote as part of Menageries Theatre Company project called Gownland. And you will see, I've only put this up there. I really did angst about putting this slide up there because I promise I'm not showing off. I'm still an imposter. But actually, there's so many Mill Road stories and connotations in there. So much of my work has been about town and gown when I look back. And there are the Mill Road monologues, lots of articles I wrote for the Mill Road Winter Fair, the Gownland, and then other things I did that I became nearly there, a little bit like the TSB Bank with the shortlisting of some of the writing. And I have to mention the Freudian slips, which has been a huge part of my writing life. And it's not up there, but I'm going to mention Classworks Theatre as well, which is somebody's in here today, which has been another massive part. And our passages, you can see, which was the Writing in the City project. But I think we stick with Town and Gown, and I would like to actually read a very short little bit from that, and then I would like to have, because we do have a little bit of time, perhaps, and in fact I might see if we've got time at the end, but it's 7 minutes, and I'm not sure we might have 7 minutes. I would quite like to do it. Could I have 2 volunteers, please? And one of you will be a porter, and one of you will be a voice-over. And if not, don't worry, because I can play all 3 parts. So you don't have to, if you'd rather not. No? Nobody? No? Oh, okay. Patrick and Sophie, thank you. And I'll play a part. Patrick, could you be the voiceover, please? Yeah. And could you be, which you need to wear the gown, Patrick, so if you could come up. And Sophie, would you like to be Miss Town or the porter? It's up to you. Miss Town. Miss Town. And yes, and you are that. And I will be the porter. And I have scripts for you, because this is a reading. And Miss Town, may I present to you? You can come up here, there, and we can stand in the 3. And the voiceover, I think, should go in the middle. Okay. And I'm the porter.
I need my glasses.
Oh. And could we give this, the volunteers, a round of applause before we even begin? We won't perhaps do the stage directions. I think we'll go straight in there, Miss Town, with wow.
Wow, this is amazing. It's better than Blackpool Illuminations. Hello? Hello, can you hear me? Senate House is a blaze of blue, Cambridge blue. It's buzzing down here, it's incredible. What? Sorry. Oh, sorry, hang on, I'll move. Can you still hear me? Hello? Get down here now, it's fantastic. What? No, I'm standing by Great St Mary's railings now. I can't really hear you. Hello? Yes, Senate House is all lit up. You won't recognise it. Excited? Yes, I am excited. It's unbelievable. I've lived here for years. I've never seen anything quite like this. Come on down. This is a one-off. Parking, easy, tiger. This is Cambridge.
Scene 2, inside the grounds of Senate House.
Wow. Quentin Blake illustrates onto the Senate House from page to projection. That is what I call evolution, Mr. Darwin, and gravity, Mr. Newt.
Transforming tomorrow, blurring the boundaries, examining the interactions between academic disciplines and innovative ideas that have transformed the world over the past 8 centuries, and they will continue transforming tomorrow.
Tomorrow? The boundaries, the blurring boundaries. Transforming the world. Transforming tomorrow, transforming today.
Keep moving, please, for blurring the boundaries.
The boundaries, crossing the boundaries. I can tell you about boundaries. High brick walls and fences, the River Cam, passages, commons and bridges. Cam, bridge, roads, traffic, one-way systems and diversions. Bollards. I said bollards. No throughway here, no entry there. This is university land. You won't get planning permission for that. They won't let you build there. Keep off the grass. Do not run, walk, or contemplate thinking that you belong here.
Keep moving, please. Keep moving. Scene 3, King's College grounds.
Keep moving to King's College Chapel, where you can see the earliest form of nanotechnology with nanotechnology of today.
Nanotechnology projected onto Gownland. Wow. This is blurring the boundaries. No town proof or pass needed tonight. The town is painted red. Molecules displayed on the chapel. Mauve and maroon. Everything is tipsy-turvy in Cambridge tonight. Any other townies here? Specks of sand is what my father says. We're all just specks of sand. Or ants. Yes, town ants, running alongside or in between the cracks and crevices, being seen but not heard. Shh. Private. Keep out. The town and Gown divide, separated by black, spiky, wrought iron railings or towering black brick walls crowned with jagged grass jewels that catch you if you dare to push the boundaries.
Keep to the path, please. Attention!
Oh, the boundary keeper himself, the guardsman and the unsung hero of the night and day, our very own college porter.
Excuse me, oh, no, I think it's Miss Town, sorry. She's mimicking Mr. Porter. Sorry, Miss Town.
Excuse me, madam. Do you have a university pass? I don't need a pass tonight. I've got one. I've had one for years. The one my dad gave me back in 1969. A verbal agreement, a boundary meter, to Trinity Street and All Saints Passage, from King's Parade to the stone statue lions on the Fitz, from Silver Street to Queen's and along the backs and back again to the roaming cattle and chapel. You see, Mr. Gown, this was my childhood ticket, my posh pass, giving me access to your Gownland, the tantalising territory juxtaposed to my suburban roots, which are in another town that is not that far away from here, a town called Romsey, Red Russia to some, porn and prostitution to others. It's just 4 stops away from the tall wall, a boundary wall that has protected me, yet at the same time denied me access to what lies beyond. Townies left to surmise, speculate, wonder and wish. Do you know of our town, Mr. Gown? Right next to your land is another land, just along a road that connects our town to yours. So close, but yet so far.
Scene 4, alongside Gibbs Building within King's College grounds.
Pass this way to Gibbs Building. Proteins to planets. A fluorescent light show for all to see.
Red and yellow and pink and green, orange and purple and blue. A mixed match of colours blurring the boundaries in academic wonder. What a sight.
Scene 5, the next afternoon inside a coffee shop.
Can I order an Americano with froth on the side, please? And could you please pass me last night's Cambridge news? Thanks. Is there still a town gown divide? 84% say yes, and 16% say no. Today transforming tomorrow, blurring the boundaries past and present. Hello. I'm the coffee shop on King's Parade in between Senate House and King's College, not that far away from St John's where I've just come from. Yep, I know. Visiting town Gownland 2 days in a row. Pardon? No, I'm on my own, sitting in the window seat, reflecting on how lucky I am. Lucky because once again I've just been given a pass into Gownland. And it's beautiful, like you always said. Yes, access to the college that Adolf Hitler had been inspired to have as his UK residence. Jawohl, Mr. Porter. Yes, I'm still here. Just the walk through St John's grounds to the lecture theatre was worth my time today. I know, the lights last night, today, transforming tomorrow. That's it, opposite King's. Keep coming down Trinity Street, our favourite city stretch, remember? Past St John's to Senate House with heifers in between. Pardon? Yes, I know, Trinity Street post office is closed. Empty like so many other shop fronts. Recession. Oh, you're here. You made it. Huh. You managed to get parked then today. Shame you missed out last night. Look, more than 10,000 people crowded into central Cambridge to witness a spectacular sight as a light show on the Senate House and old schools. An extravaganza designed by world-renowned light artist Ross Ashton. Amazing. Gown finally illuminates town. It's just like you said, Dad. This has always been our town and we live here, in the here and now, passing through. It was the most amazing light show that I've ever seen. Town met gown and gown finally met town. Cheers. Here's to the next 800 years, born and bred.
Thank you. It's wonderful. Thank you very much. So I'm just going to repeat just the last part of that. Look, more than 10,000 people crowded into the central Cambridge to witness a spectacular light show on Senate House and old schools, an extravaganza designed by the world-renowned light artist Ross Ashton. Amazing. Gown finally illuminates town. It's just like you said, Dad, this has always been our town and we live here in the here and now, just passing through. It was the most amazing light show that I've ever seen. Town met gown and gown finally met town. Best foot forward. Is everybody still comfortable? Has anybody got any blisters? I hope the tour's not been too long. We're nearly at the end. This is inspirational and a thanks, I guess, to all of those trips in town where I wasn't the first to do my masters. I was the first to do my degree, but later on in life. And I'd also like to acknowledge the other wonderful university that's over the bridge, Anglia Ruskin, for that one as a mature student. And I am actually doing some work for them now. So that will come into things about what goes round in a minute. But just briefly looking at this, hopefully you can see the pictures. That picture is on my middle son's Masters ceremony day. He was at Sydney, Sussex, and he's with his brother Matthew with his gown, and he'd already been to Downing. Both of them did teacher training, their PGCEs, and then their Masters. And that is, I think, at one of the formal dinners that we went to, and that is me outside Senate House, looking really chuffed, because actually, everybody, I think, I've learnt this, everybody has to work really hard to get what they want to get, and I had worked really hard, and there'd been some sacrifices along the way. And the only part of that I'm going to read to you is just what you've heard before, because when I wrote this is what I wrote. When FIRSA, the Faculty of Education Student Association, wanted us to do this article. They wanted us to do it because I did the same masters as my eldest son. I followed in his footsteps, and my middle son was there at the same time as me, and we used to spend some of our days in the university library together. Studying for a master's degree in Cambridge had always interested me. This derived from my weekly Saturday morning town visits with my father, who was a bricklayer by trade, like his father, my grandfather, both of whom had worked in some of the colleges and who both had a passion for the university college buildings. From their stories, I was always drawn to the college fronts and backs, often longing to understand what college life really did look like from the inside. My father said that this was our Cambridge and that these buildings belonged to the townspeople too. The latter a mantra I passed on to my sons. Yet my own personal circumstances and unconventional career trajectory did not initially lead me to meet the Cambridge gown. Instead, I had to follow a less conventional work-based learning pathway that led me into teaching and leading as a head of creative and expressive arts at a local academy trust. This leadership role inspired me to pursue my current educational consultancy role, working for teaching schools in Cambridge and striving for school improvement for all. And what about over the bridge? The other side of Mill Road. The other side of Mill Road was less familiar to me in the 70s, apart from those occasional Sunday visits to Parkside swimming pool to literally dip in and dip out before meeting my dad at the Six Bells, where he was having a pre-Sunday lunch pint and a game of darts. He would look out for me, and as soon as he saw me and that I'd arrived, he would bring me a bottle of Coke with a straw and a packet of crisps, and I would sit outside while he finished his pint. I also remember those dreaded trips to Barney's, the bargain clothes shop, where fabrics were stiff and starchy as opposed to the fabrics that I used to see in the shops downtown, fancy department stores that we visited each Saturday morning, Eden Lilly's, Joshua Taylor's, Robert Sales. I became more familiar with the other side of the bridge during my years of teaching at Parkside and Coleridge schools, working on projects with the Friends of Mill Road Cemetery and the Mill Road History Society, all of which led me to the Mill Road monologue book, which includes many characters from Mill Road and many of the wonderful landmarks, lots of which are from over the bridge. I better get volume 2 going for Romsey Town, as well as writing a book or a monologue dedicated to the wonderful Alan Brigham, who I had the privilege of doing his life story in February 2020. I'm not going to go through all of the characters of the book, but if you'd like to take a copy of the Mill Road monologues tonight, please help yourself. So what about Arbury? The place over there, over the other side, the place that did not feature in my early thoughts, apart from those school holiday visits with my mum to see her former neighbours in Hawkins Road, neighbours that had become my parents' friends, neighbours that you called auntie and uncle, but who were not actually blood related. Salt of the earth kind of people who stayed in Arbury all of their lives. Good people who would do anything to help out. And Auntie Jo did. She was there at my birth as I came out in a hurry. No changes there. At a time back then, the places that were talked or reported of were all in the Cambridge News, the Cambridge Evening News then. This was my feelings of and my news of Arbury. The Kingsway Flats, oh, you don't want to go there, especially late at night. The Jenny Wren pub, oh no, not another fight. Arbury Court, grey flagstone slabs, cold. The Grove School, my brother's first school before the move to Romsey. Arbury School, the Manor, the secondary school on the other side, much like Coleridge School for locals, and lots of my friends went there. They call this bad press. Not much has changed then, has it? Not for Arbury, but from the press. Reflecting back on these memories, this hearsay, I realised that I didn't know the positive side of this community. 2015, working in the Manor, which changed its name while I was there to North Cambridge Academy, I witnessed young people who loved their patch, young people whose parents and grandparents had been born in Arbury, community spirit and more, young people who did not know where King's College was or even existed. I remember teaching one girl, aged 11, who was so proud of her granddad, who had been the main organiser of the Arbury Carnival for years, an annual event organised by local enthusiastic people where inclusion and diversity were at the heart of this parade. Good press, celebrating this community and all it stands for. Thank goodness I had the opportunity to learn from those that lived down the same road where I was born. Surely this has to be one of the advantages or privileges of still living in the same town all of your life. Hearing about the community that had a valid place on the map and seeing this through a different lens on our new tour. An area that I made huge assumptions about based on other people's accounts and plenty of bad press back in the 70s, 80s and 90s. And thanks to teaching and learning, I was able to draw my own conclusions. The joy of being born and bred in Cambridge and venturing on this alternative tour. The joy of being able to connect and reconnect with my early memories and finally leave my footprint on both sides of the river with no bias. Kay Blayney was here to leave my signature in the matriculation entry in Emmanuel College, Cambridge. Kay Blayney was here, or something like that. What goes around comes around for me, and it certainly has. Step into my shoes and see if you can spot the connections. Seeing my name carved into the wall of the Cambridge Drama Centre, Covent Garden, Cambridge, as Kay Coburn, when I was actually Kay Blayney. Who put that there? And how funny I should be performing here and seeing this now. a 70s carving by someone else, and found by me years later as I was still living in the same town. The Emersons ending up being my next-door neighbours for the last 27 years. Yes, David and Shirley, my doctors, my neighbours and my friends. David died 3rd of December last year, and 2020, last year 2021, and Shirley is still alive. Teacher training at Coleridge School, the school where I attended in the 70s. Venturing over the bridge to do my NQT year at Parkside Community College and travelling between both schools, up and down the bridge, from Romsey to Petersfield and back again. 2 schools at the opposite ends of Mill Road, which I named my educational bookends. Thank you, you served me well. Regular visits to the Mill Road Cemetery with students in tow, using the graves as a learning resource, a place not to be missed. A place full of characters, some of which came alive again via the Mill Road monologues and beyond. Not forgetting the gown and being the other side of Emmanuel Wall, where my bus used to stop. Inside, in, and yet still an imposter, but no different to many of the other fellows or doctorates who admitted that they all felt the same. A common feeling I found out in my grounded theory, which was all about collecting life stories, which is the skill that will serve me well to continue to support others and to tell stories, and for me to continue and share mine. If you can bear with me for 1 minute, I'm going to see if I can put a little piece of music on for the last little bit for you to reflect, and then I will be finished. And I've still enough time to take a few questions. And I'm not sure this is going to connect, obviously, but we'll see. And if it doesn't, we won't worry about it. And I don't think it will, so we're not going to worry about that. But I'm just going to take you then through the last few slides. So from my formal shoes, my memories of Arbury do not belong to me. The stories I was told were not mine. I was there, but not there. Thank you, Arbury. Thank you, Romsey Town. Thank you, Cambridge. And thank you all for stepping in my shoes. And thanks to these little white shoes, because they allowed me to share my love of Cambridge with the following shoes. And there is a number 2 up there, but I haven't got his shoes yet. Born on Christmas Day, 2021. For number 1 grandson. My sincere thanks and acknowledgements to Caro Wilson for inviting me to share my Cambridge life. Mill Road History Society committee members for your encouragement and support, and Mill Road History Society researchers, all of them are out there, some of you may be in here tonight, for all you do for Mill Road past and present, getting the footage and keeping the memories going and rolling. And to Simon for technical support tonight. As you can see, obviously, give me the music, and that didn't work, but that's great. And again, thank you all for coming. I've said, please do take a monologue book if you want one, and I will move things here. And there's some archives. And if we've just got time then for some questions. So, yeah. 10 minutes for some questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Kay. That was really wonderful. Let's keep it informal, but please do ask
Yes? Yes, I brought that because I felt I needed to. It is another story, and it has been another story in a project that I did with the Freudian Slips. We did a piece called It'll All Come Out in the Wash, an exhibition that actually Tamsin Wimhurst, who's got the David Parr House, she actually takes the talk around. And myself and Veronica, who's in the audience tonight, are both Freudian Slips. We're both part of that exhibition that was a really great thing that we did. I used to work at the Swiss Laundry. I didn't get the TSB job bank, but I became the accounts office junior at the Swiss Laundry and was there for 7 years. And there, the letters and my contracts in there, and my first wage packet. Ah. Oh, did you? Yes. Ah. Yeah. Any, yes.
What piece of music did we miss?
It's the Shire's Daddy's Little Girl. And in some ways, it's just because I don't always harp on, I try and move forward with music. And it's a song that I listen to a lot at the moment. And it's just because it's about the daughter and the father. And the father's obviously really encouraged her. And obviously lots of this, you can see, there's some huge thanks to my dad, yeah. So that was the music that was going to play, yeah. Any? In Fulbourn, so not that far away. And my mum, Dry Drayton or Madingley, and she did something terrible, not a few years ago. We met somebody via a connection at Parkside. She actually thought that he lived in the house that she was born in. He kindly invited us to tea, in really swanky tea, and we turned up, and just as we were outside the door, Mum said, "No, this wasn't the house I was born in." So I just said to her, "Be quiet, just make pretend it is, and we'll enjoy the tea." Yeah. So I don't think my mum knows where. I don't think she knows where she was born. My brother was born Mill Road, maternity hospital, and I was born in Hawkins Road, and I did come in a hurry. And sadly, my Auntie Jo actually was one, she did actually die of COVID in the first wave of COVID. And my Uncle Dick, who's still alive, was on the news. Hugh Pym interviewed him. They were both in hospital together. And my Uncle Dick, if anybody saw him, apparently his name is Graham. And Hugh Pym was interviewing Graham. And I thought, Graham? That's my Uncle Dick there. And he was saying that what's really sad about this, I can't get to see my wife. But they did, Hugh Pym's visit actually, I think, spurred on, and I think he'd had a soft spot for my Uncle Dick, Graham, and I think he was allowed to go and see her. So that was, but she probably would have died anyway because she did have a lung condition. So, but they obviously were a massive part of my mum's life, but mine as well. Mum always used to say to me, "Send your Auntie Jo a card." I used to get a message, "Don't forget Auntie Jo's birthday," because she was the one that had kind of almost delivered me. What goes round comes around. A nurse that's lots of people talk about her, of Mum's generation, is Nurse Baker, delivered me. And she ended up, when I then lived next door to Shirley and David, they used to tell me many stories. And Nurse Baker was someone they knew really well. So all of that, and there's so much. You know, today I was thinking about some of the photographs that I could have put in today. But, you know, I tried to be focused and stick to the, and I hope, for me, the writing part of this is the Arbury bit that actually really, really made me I even moved my own self in that sense. So I hope that you got the sense of that too. And I wonder if that's how you felt about things, because that was just me. You hear about something, and that's sometimes what we believe. Any other questions? Yes?
Do you think Miss Foster wrote to many of her executions?
I think she probably did, actually. Yeah. I mean, there's loads more. So the other letters that I've got are, you know, all in there. You know, there's just loads. And she used to write to my mum as well. But, you know, maybe it was I always wrote back. I mean, she was my love of performing and drama. I must admit, I probably should write something, and I don't mean this, I don't want you to all feel sorry for me at this point, obviously not getting the job at the TSB Bank, and only getting shortlisted for the Escalator Award. I'll tell you the biggest thing that hurt me the most, I was Angel Gable's assistant at 5, and I think maybe that has scarred me more than anything. My best friend was Angel Gable, who stood there in all of the great wings and did all of the thing, and I was her assistant, just standing there behind. I think Miss Foster knew I'd never really forgiven her for that, so she perhaps has... No, it's a really good question, and I don't know, and I wish she was here, and I wish I could speak to her, and I wish I could... She told me a story about the 2 lions at Fitzwilliam Museum, and we believed it, we all believed it. She would get you in the room, and she would hold you. She just held everybody. You know, what was really sad when I did my thesis about the secret desire to be ahead, what I discovered is the job she had doesn't exist anymore. I mean, I just want to be ahead of telling stories. So actually, maybe, you know, maybe I have made that, because that's what, I'm sure she did other things, but I'm sure there wasn't the budget and financial and all of the other jobs you have to do as a head teacher today. So, yeah.
She was there for years, wasn't she?
She was, yeah. And she left the year we left, and we bought her a dog who she called Sedley. So Sedley was our gift to her. We all collected, all of us, and obviously sang and stories were told. And she lived Hawkston Road. So often I look at her house when I often do trips to Royston because one of my sons lives there. So I often, if I get stopped in traffic, I'll just think of Miss Foster, yeah.
These your shoes here, Kay?
And these are my shoes. These are my brother's shoes, which I thought deserved to feature. Because it was, my brother's probably got a completely different story to me. He played and went to school in Arbury. And I wonder what that was like for him, being moved from a school to another school at that age. He will have different things. He knows, I asked him today, I phoned him a bit last minute to say that I think he'd be able to get in, but he's not in Cambridge, and he said he would have come. But I just jokingly, I said, I hope you don't mind I'm using your photographs. He said, actually I do, can you take them out? Yeah, of course he doesn't, but he knew that would just... And then these are my shoes, yeah, which my nana kept, and they've got, yeah, so they're my first little shoes. And then she also then kept these, and then you did, didn't you? And I've got them, and then I quickly said to my daughter-in-law, please can I have Alma's shoes? Yeah. So I will perhaps have Jasper's and whoever else comes truckling along. So, any more questions? Because I've got just one more thing I want to do, if you don't mind. But I'm happy to take perhaps one more question. Yeah. Okay, if you don't mind, and I've asked the committee to do this, I have lived here all of my life, and sometimes I think I went through a stage where I thought people, and I did feel this, definitely when my boys were younger, and people asked me where I came from, and it felt boring sometimes saying to them. I wanted to say that I'd lived in far away places. We have had language students in our life, all of our lives, and so the world came to us. And that's another story. That's another story with relationships with language students and the language school. But with what's going on in Ukraine at the moment, my heart aches for those people living in places like myself that have never moved. They've never had to pack away their stuff and leave their village, their area, and they've had to take one bag and go. And if you don't mind, I would really, having told my story tonight, I really feel that I want to dedicate our thoughts just for a minute, even half a minute, if I light a candle. And obviously you think your own thoughts, but if we can just have a little bit of a moment and think about that, all of the people, of course, people that have moved as well, and everybody that is doing their bit. So I light this candle just for peace and settling and warmth and love and kindness. Thank you. And as important, I feel we have to mention as well all of the families in Russia that do not want this war and that may have lost their sons and daughters. Thank you. I'll keep the candle burning. I promise I'm going to blow it out before I leave this evening. And I'm going to put the altar back. Thank you so much. You've been an amazing audience. Yes.
Very moving performance, and I know that there are several people in this room who were also born and bred in Cambridge. Not me. My story is very, very different. But,
oh, sorry, I wasn't. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And I think very thought-provoking and makes us reflect on, all of us are reflecting on our own lives and where we come from. Thank you.
And I would say, get your story down. Like I said to one of my sons today when I knew none of them, they couldn't come, one lives in Germany. I said, don't worry, I've just written my own eulogy. So, thank you so much. Safe journey home and lovely to see everybody in person. And if you want to come and have a look, Miss Foster gave everybody at Sedley School a book. This little book was presented to Kay Coburn. She gives you a nice little quote. And there's the front line of the Cambridge News there when the vicar went to sleep. And if there's anything you want to have a little look at, and if not, I'm sure it'll all be dragged out on another night.